Boy, would that be a big starter. Instantaneous selling of it, but because the farmers would make money. And, the timber around here is worthless because nobody's buying it for pulp anymore. So we could, use that. Because like I said, there's the pulp place in the back is closed. I think the one in the Coos is shutting down, I heard. That's it for this area. And then there's one biofuel plant that's possibly being built up by Superior. And another in Minnesota. And if we can bring one here, we got it made because look at all the state and town force we have. Again, the money's sitting, if it's not being cut, it's not being used when I'm making it. So because we make taxes. So, to be able to have that brought in would be nice. As in the timber around here could be harvested. Plus the farmers too. If the corn is low on the market, they could sell it here in Michigan, pumpkin. And milk too. The guy's a genius.
Hey.
Oh, well, you know what? I don't know.
Get the price of that down or?
I'll tell you what, I need to buy more now, I found out this morning. Son of a bitch. I mean, hey, I'm like, I watch it. And I walk in there, I'm like, God, their horses are huge. They look fat. I'm like, these things are huge. They weigh. They used to weigh 1,300. Now she thinks they weigh 4.
Nick, were there any changes because of this?
So I'm like,
A direct copy of the one.
so now we got to do that.
Okay.
Usually.
Now I got to spend another.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know how much.
No, that's fine.
We don't use the big thing. We use the small.
Thank you.
Yeah, the little, thank you.
The small squares. Yeah.
But then you actually pay more per.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course. That's the way it works. And then I handle it 3 times because I crawl up on top of the wagon, I throw it down, then I stack it on the back of the truck because she had to have it where the 10-foot gates are just barely wide enough to drive a pickup truck through. She made those and my son did. So that was smart. Then when I drive up there, I got to unload it and I have to throw it up for her and the boys to, so they can stack it. So the old man is handling it 4 times. So wonderful.
Sounds like firewood.
Oh, yeah. Well, fire's easy, right? Last summer, I was up there on that damn wagon. It was hot. Oh, it was hotter now. I'm up there and I'm throwing these small bales down. And it was about 95 degrees. And I'll tell you what, never felt that way. All the heat that I've been in, and I thought I was going to die.
Really?
Oh, and you think anybody's going to help you? Oh, no. We're sitting up there and she's got a couple of fans in there. I pull up and I'm like, get your asses up here. I'm done. I was dying. I mean, I was absolutely dying. Seriously. I've never felt like that. I've never had that kind of feeling before I got sick with my stomach. I've never had this. But now I gotta get, she wants to get another 500 bales. That's 500 times 5 is $2,500.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just wonderful.
Yeah,
Divorce or divorce. Divorce isn't cheap. That's not this time because now she's got to get the bed out there. They're coughing. So now we got to get that. Dr. Hemble, she's in here.
Yeah.
She's pretty good. Damn right she's good. And, we just had their feet down their hooks done. And that was $150. So never stops. Never. And then she wants to run, listen to this, it's awesome. She wants to run a water line from the house.
Don't forget
About
Justin.
450 feet
Just pointed down.
to the barn. Got to dig a 5-6 foot down. She wants, so that's gonna be cost. And then she wants electric with it, because I'm using extension cords.
okay.
So that's gonna be expensive. And I told her, I said, listen, there's no more after that. There's,
Is she raising gold through?
no, hell, no, I didn't want another one. She was mentioning getting what the hell was it, miniature,
Still.
a miniature donkey and a miniature horse.
should hook Lori up with her.
Yeah, oh, yeah, anything would be an improvement.
Ever come down and meet my daughter, the goats, sheep?
They could go to their
Monkeys,
small animal
chickens.
Really?
office together.
If I throw chickens on our land, we'd probably get an ag cut, but, you know, you get an agricultural cut if you raise chickens. Or a horse, or not a horse. We don't get ag for the horses.
Doesn't it have to be if it's like commercial?
Yeah. So hers is not commercial. It's a commercial watching her ride the things, because she's so.
So it's commercial, like the $10 a week I make on my pig?
You know what, if you make it, save it, Gaylord give you a break, you know, and you're like, yeah.
How many chickens?
29.
Oh, really?
29 chickens. Well, you're agriculture right there. I'm telling you. We don't have.
You gotta get permit for that?
Yes, you did have.
I had to change my zone. So, yeah, we're down in Nam, you know,
Where are you?
big forest all around us.
Later.
but We had to change our zoning. It's $100.
I don't have
Yeah.
How much that cost?
$100.
To change zoning? For 29 chickens.
Napa's
Up to
county,
50.
Napa's county zone?
Such awesome.
And you don't get ag for that? Oh, I'd push that. You know.
Well, no, because you can have a resident. It's something about.
Thank you.
I don't know. I know that when they came out, they said, you don't get nothing. I said, what do you mean I don't get anything? Because we cleared thousands of dollars and clear it and seed it and all that stuff. And I said, what the hell are you talking about? Well, you gotta sell them. I said, well, I need to sell them, but she's like, I ain't doing that. I'm like, well, we're gonna have to pay. We pay a lot of money. $7,000 a year, 75, 80. That is a lot of dinero. I'm sure it's probably more expensive for you guys, but still, we're not making anything on it.
No,
Not at least, well, we're spending it, you know. I told her, I said, if we could get a couple of bills, maybe we could use that as ag, but you know, nothing to do with that. It's gotta be a donkey and another horse or whatever. I do have two cats.
Maybe you could trade it all in for a kitten.
We got two cats.
So,
I think she.
And I got two pet possums.
But she opens.
Oh,
her
is it
gate,
Kansas?
goes on there.
really?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Two pet possums.
Yeah.
I adopted those things, two pet possums in the house, they had nothing to go out at night. Cats just hate them, but they're, it scares the hell out of cats. They open up their mouths like a cat and they hiss, but other than that, they do nothing. Clean, they're clean as hell, you know, and they go in the litter box.
Really?
Yeah, they do, they go in the litter box, you know. And I'm like, wow, you know, and I call them Pansy and Posy. And she's like, what the hell did you name that for? I said, because you don't know which one is which. So it's, whatever has babies, that's gonna be Pansy. Yeah, you open up the door and you'll put them in and they hang out, they pet them. They think that's the greatest thing.
Maybe you should start a YouTube reality show at your place.
Oh.
Wouldn't there be a whole lot of bleeping going on?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they do a lot of that kind of stuff on TikTok.
I think so, but I can tell you one thing, those idiot grandkids come over, I mean, instead of fighting each other, they're gonna be humping, which they see some serious fight.
So they're old enough now to.
Oh, and they're terrible. 13, 11 and 9. See, I like each other.
When I was 13, I was.
Well, that's what they're gonna be doing.
For some of them.
Oh, somebody said, why don't you get one of those, what the hell they call those things? You put the hay on it, it takes it up. An elevator.
Yep.
I said, I got 3 of them. They're gonna be throwing it up, throwing it up, throwing it up. They're hyper. Ever since, they're just wild. You know, if one does it, the other 2 have to do the same. So if I tell them that they gotta go out there and start to pay bills, they're all gonna have to.
That ought to.
It's terrible. Oh,
Well, it's really fun though, that I'd sneak out to the bar and have beer at night.
there you go. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do
Get
it.
some hit out there.
Yeah. And I'll tell you. Now I gotta find another, I gotta be looking for another truck. A good used one.
Well, I have a brother in northern Illinois that's Ford, I think 20.
Horse.
Yeah.
No way. There's some, you know, they're cool, and I mean, I would never get them to work with guys anyway. It's, but I'm serious. You know, they're a lot of money. I never realized that. I thought it was just like, you know,
But years ago, it used to, it wasn't that big of an expense, but things have changed.
big time. A good horse is what, 10, 15,000?
At least. Used to get a decent one for $5.
Good morning, how are you? I'm good.
Morning, everybody. Hey, how you doing, Wayne? Good, Nick? Here he is.
Oh,
Oh,
speaking
yeah.
of, there he is.
2 minutes early.
Oh, jeez.
Sort of.
Used to get that stuff for like 50 cents a pound.
Really?
But yeah, at least, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's, we're paying $5.
Yeah.
Then we can get it cheaper, but then again, you might get bad hay, or I don't know, bad hay, but, you know, that one,
You don't want to get a molded bale.
no, that's the problem. The other thing. Mine's from Billy Patterson, the guy, the hay was great, but one side was tight, the other wasn't, and I mean, she fall apart,
Yeah.
yeah. You just couldn't.
Okay, I'm sure at 9 o'clock to call the meeting to order, law enforcement committee meeting for February. Next meeting date, March 19th. 9 o'clock. Good for everybody. Approve LEC minutes from January 2026. We're on your iPads.
Make a motion.
Motion by Russ, approved.
I'll second.
Second by Ron. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, discuss an act resolution creating ordinance 5.11. Supervisor Cooper provided the information. The information is on your iPads. Tom is here. If you have any questions? Discussion? There's no discussion, entertain a motion.
I move to approve, the ordinance as proposed with, giving the clerk the authority to make some grammatical changes to the ordinance, because there's some periods missing and some improperly spaced paragraphs.
Motion by Bill. Amendments to the original proposal.
Second.
Second by Russ. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Well, I got one here.
Okay.
I still want to note in the ordinance, that there's a huge error. It's still citing 59.52, parent 30, which has to do with highway work. It wasn't changed. I was mentioned it last month, it wasn't changed. So I don't think we should vote in favor of this because we need codified in the law inaccurate information. So I don't know why that's been changed. And then 59.52, parent 6 is kind of a stretch, how they use it in this ordinance proposal. So I think those errors there, disqualify it for approval.
What was this section you said?
59.52, parent 30, has to do with highway
30.
road work. Yeah, it says limitation on performance of highway work, notwithstanding a county may not use its own workforce to perform a highway improvement project on a highway under the jurisdiction of another county or municipality that is located in a different county unless one of the following applies. So I have no idea idea what that has to deal with, inmate costs.
Any other questions, discussion?
I know legal was involved. Can you get an update on legal's interpretation of this? Or I
That
don't
was
have it.
provided to the
What's that?
It was provided to the committee.
Well, we approved the vouchers every month. The sheriff is always within his budget. So I really don't see the need. So.
So instead of the 59.5230, what was it supposed to be? From last meeting? I thought it was a typo, right?
I don't know what it's supposed to be.
I had corrected the ordinances after the statute numbers after Max, brought them up, so, I don't know why they didn't get changed, but, I'd made a correction notice in that when I sent the response back after Max posted up, and it's the subsections that are off, like, should be D instead of B or something like that, that brought it back in line with the check.
I never
So-
got anything from our last meeting. So I don't have any changes, so I didn't make any changes.
Okay, maybe I sent them directly to. Maybe I know that I sent them out, I'll have to go back and look again, but I did make the corrections after Max pointed them out, and relevant, so. But I agree, it should have reflect the correct statute numbers, and I'm mistaken, have they, well, Riley didn't pick up on that error either.
That's like I looked into legal, like,
They
they didn't
they
catch
should-
that either, that's an easy Google
They
search.
should have,
Yeah,
I'll go back and check my email, yeah. Mr. Chair, that it definitely needs to have the correct statute numbers in it. I'm sure I corrected it, but
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, roll call vote.
Well, I move that we postpone the vote until the changes are made, till next meeting.
I think that's a good idea.
Everybody agree with that? Max? Ron?
Mhm.
Fine. Motion postponed.
We
Goes
still
to
have to do something with the first motion, though.
can we
We
withdraw,
have to do something with the first motion.
can you withdraw that motion, or,
I made the motion to postpone the vote.
I'll second Bill's motion and the table, this resolution.
All in favor?
Aye. And now we're back to compliance.
Okay, this is discuss an act taser project resolution.
So with the discussion, what you should have in the packets there is the information regarding the TASER X26P. That product is available. What I'm seeking to do is update our tasers for 2026 to get us equipment that's gonna meet our needs and hopefully get us to the next 5 years. This would be taser as well as the accessories needed to make it work, battery, cartridge, holster. And it also comes with a 1-year warranty. This includes a additional 4-year warranty. Like I said, it'll hopefully get it through. It comes,
You said it comes with a 1-year warranty and then a 4-year?
yeah, this is the resolution that I'm seeking also has a 4-year warranty added to
Okay,
into that cost already. And ultimately what I'd be trying to do is outfit us with a total of 32 tasers for the sheriff's office. And when you look at this compared to what was done before, the numbers on this would come out to be, I had it, a little over or between $70,000 and $71,000 for this versus the TASER 10 process would put us over the $200,000 mark. So this is gonna be about a third of the cost to accomplish the same goal. I can entertain questions on that if you have questions.
we have no truck funds now? Oh, yeah, we're good, okay.
originally, we were talking about going to the TASER tens because of obsolescence, right? So any word from the manufacturer, how long do they think they're gonna keep supplying these?
So
That was the whole reason why we were gonna change. I just wanna make sure that.
So when I asked that to Taser directly, they will not give me a straight answer. And to be very open about the whole thing, when we first talked with Taser, you know, they had certainly implied that this product had gone by the wayside and they weren't gonna support it.
Right.
Now all of a sudden, not only is it here, but you can buy it right now on the website, right? The other thing too that gives me confidence that this thing is not gonna go by the wayside within the next couple months is the fact that they sell an almost identical product to the civilian market. They just change them out. And they change what cartridge you can buy with the buildings, with holes. So I can't tell you that for sure they're gonna be able to get parts for these for all these years, but I'm confident that we should be able to get enough stuff to at least get us move forward here for a while. You know, and then if we have to revisit this even in 3 years, you know, I think we're still ahead as opposed to where we're at right now is enforced to move into this right now. And this X26P is very similar to the X26s that a lot of us are carrying right now. So from a training standpoint, there's not really much difference between the two. You start moving into the 10, there's a different training, or it's a different product completely, right? Do I think the 10 has some advantages over this? Yes, I do. Okay, but the reality of the situation is that we're in a spot now where our stuff is failing and we need to have a solution. And I think this is the most fiscally responsible way to do it.
One would assume that if they're gonna give you a 5-year warranty, they'll probably continue to make parts or have enough parts for 5 years.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
And when I talked to the rep about that, and I said, well, what happens if 3 years down the road you discontinue this product and you still have a warranty? You wouldn't give me a straight answer. But I don't want to get into opinions on it, but that was the premise to it.
In this industry, is there people that make aftermarket parts? You know, like in the tractor equipment industry, you know, John Deere might not make a part, but another company does. Is that the same thing in tasers, or is this kind of really bottled up?
That's a great question. As far as I know, I believe all their stuff is proprietary. You know, now that is not to say that you can't go and get some like refurbished stuff from aftermarket companies, but then you're gonna stand alone on warranties and all that.
Okay, liability issue.
Cindy, do you wanna read the resolution for tasers?
No.
Right?
But I will.
We can all
I'm
read
just
it.
kidding. Whereas the Jackson County Sheriff's Office utilizes less lethal tools for self-protection, protection of others, stabilizing volatile scenes, and taking persons into custody. Whereas the Jackson County Sheriff's Office utilizes less lethal tools to help reduce injuries to suspects, members of the community, and staff. Whereas Axon makes the Taser X26P, which is a less lethal tool which is commonly used by law enforcement agencies throughout the United States of America and is recognized as an accepted less lethal tool by the Wisconsin Department of Justice. Whereas many of the tasers currently being used by the Jackson County Sheriff's Office are old technology. Some have failed and need to be replaced, and most are past the 5-year life cycle suggested by Axon, and parts are increasingly hard to source. And whereas the Jackson County Board of Supervisors approved a budget for 2026, which included funding $27,978, which will be used to purchase 13 Axon Tasers X26Ps, which will include a 1-year warranty and a 4-year extended warranty, as well as purchasing batteries, cartridges, and holsters, which will cover some needs for the Jackson County Sheriff's Office uses. And whereas Axon has an estimated 6% increase in cost per year. Whereas the Jackson County Sheriff's Office requests Ho-Chunk funds in the amount of $43,000 to purchase an additional 19 Axon Tasers X26Ps, batteries, cartridges, holsters, and download kit to complete the outfitting of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office staff based on current position. Therefore, be it resolved that the Jackson County Sheriff's Office hereby requests the Jackson County Board of Supervisors to authorize Ho-Chunk funds in the amount of $43,000 to fund the 2026 Taser project.
Further discussion? Entertain a motion. Motion by Max to approve,
Second.
seconded by Bill, all in favor,
Aye.
all vote against? Carried.
Thank you.
For signature.
Okay, discuss an act on contracted law enforcement.
Sure. I have a side letter agreement I'll present to the chair. Sent around for viewing. This side letter has been discussed with the villages. Basically what it is the acknowledging that the term of the first contract has ended and we're aware of it. It also gives the ability for us to continue with the contract agreement for this calendar year 26 with some adjustments to the personnel costs, which are more specifically, we're utilizing part-time staff and hours of work, pay as you go versus the full-time position. Many of that, or a lot of that has to do directly with the villages not funding or at least having concerns of how they're gonna fund the full-time position. But have also indicated they want to continue the full-time position. They just want to do the budget for 2027. So this is a bridge side letter to get us through 26, and then we're in discussions already creating some language on the 20, if it's 27 forward contract services. So again, this has been discussed. Maryland had most of the input. An add-on here was just to assist with the transition of information. The request to give out information on the cost that's indicated by August 31st of each year. The county will submit to the municipality a projected cost of service. There's more language in there, but basically it just allows them to get prepared for the budget, which is now in the proposed side letter, which will be added to the contract as it's being discussed. So I'll present this. It appears that the signatures on it, and it's consistent with the past side letters, was Jeff Amo, the chair, Cindy and I, and then of course the presidents, et cetera, how they vote on it. So I don't know if that needs to change. But this side letter is basically just really it's bridging that 26 year. Everybody's in agreement verbally up to this point, status quo. This is just the paperwork to fulfill that bridge.
How can I have a question if I haven't read the side letter yet?
It's right there.
Coming your way, Bill, could hold on, we'll get there.
Defines a side letter. Is that the original agreement that says you can issue side letters?
To my knowledge, side letters are something within the term or in conjunction with a contract. So that it would be an addendum to that contract.
So this is an addendum to the contract.
That's what I understand a side letter, but actually for the term, it's quite often used in the union contracts, et cetera. So it's something that is normally used in clarifying or adding or something in addition to the current contract.
I'd like to, like to say something.
The adjustments to the costs that you're mentioning in here, how does this committee get, what adjustments do you think are gonna need to be made? Because our budget's already set for 2026, so I'm trying to understand how these adjustments will be actually processed.
In the contract, it more specifically talks about hiring a full-time deputy. Not having a full-time deputy and then not, for the villages not to have secured funding for the deputy. has bring us into a situation that they want services, but under the certain, when we were vacant, we were providing those said services with a part-time staff member, which also allows us to do so. So in doing the part-time or LTE staff, we're utilizing that person, that staff to perform the tasks and work directly with the villages on the hours that they need or want at this time, which goes away from the anticipated cost sharing and spending. So we have to make an adjustment internally to basically, when we build something, it's gonna be paid that way. So you're basically paying for what you're getting for service. So that's the adjustment. Otherwise, if it stays rigid with the contract, it says we're in the mentality that our intent was to have a full-time staff member, which we don't at this time. So it just gives us the ability to adjust that expenditure within the budget, so it stays within the budget. So we're not asking for funds in addition to what's already budgeted.
So what we're looking at here is a specific law enforcement officer for these municipalities, right?
We were.
Okay, so the municipalities, I've been to a few meetings and they're under the gun financially, you know? So I guess my thing was I'd like to see, it would be nice to see this kind of thing come up a little bit sooner than right at the meeting here, you know what I mean? I don't want to get blindsided with something, so it would be nice to be able to get this, extra thing thrown in here so I could actually take a look at it a little bit better instead of just whizzing through, but that's all I wanted to say. I just, I can see where y'all are coming from and I can see where the municipalities are coming from, it just, kind of a heads up would be nice, but anyway, that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Can I address that? By putting information in a packet creates a record. This is not official record. This is a draft and or something to be presented for an official vote or your action. So instead of having two versions with edits, there is a fundamentally conundrum basically that occurs because if you have my draft or an attorney's draft, that's a record and has to be maintained. By doing it this way, it's not a record. And it's just a discussion point within the committee until it's official by a vote or some action. It's still fluid. No draft. By asking to see it early, I have an issue until I get a legal opinion on it. It's a record. And if we make variances, if Bill comes back and wants to amend it, we have to maintain both those records for the sequence of records custodian purposes. This is my draft to you. This is what we would like to present and move forward. That's what I've been arguing the whole time is that, yes, it would be nice to give you the information in advance, but that also creates a record. And I've argued that in other meetings. So I want just to make that known that it's not that I don't want to share the information. It's if I come here and there's a total misdirection and it's changed, we have to maintain both records by law. There's no way around it.
I think that records, I understand what you're saying. But I think that the records, if it's on record, but that record could always be changed. That's what you're saying is that it can't be changed. But I'm saying that, once you present this early, if you present this early and we look at it, have time for it, it would be considered a record when you present it early, right?
Once it's put in that packet, it leaves the office and now it's a stapled record in the eyes of record, the definition.
But if we change it, then that record would also in effect. Okay.
That's the issue.
I guess my thing is
Status
that
quo.
we should be able to, I would like to get that early though, but
I think what you're talking about is possibly outside
review.
this public meeting would have a discussion on the issue so that we can speak clearly and debate what you're asking for. But in a public meeting, I'm presenting the side letter as a official request or notice and request to the committee that this is the desire of the contract services.
Thank you.
Jessica, after you go.
Jessica.
Just offer some HR creates records. Quite frequently that go to committees or the executive committee for consideration with, red line versions. And then that committee tends to have some very robust discussion around policy, recommendations. And oftentimes HR is then sent back to edit the policy with the committee's recommendations. And then I bring them back the next month and so on and so forth. So I would just offer that this could quite likely be considered, like that.
Thank you.
For Schedule A.
It's not part of that document. I apologize. Schedule A gives the outline of cost. I can get that to you guys. I never thought about bringing it. Basically, that's the document that would also be called an addendum to the cost sharing and would give specifics on 2026 salaries of LTE staff on an entry level to senior LTE to how the contract within the union contract of the deputies are outlined from start in the longevity scale that gives them the cost. So in addition to that, it talks about identifying the federal mileage that is established by the county, and that would be an expenditure paid by the municipality as well.
Taylor's a different one. They have their own separate contract.
That is correct.
Oh, is there any, who's gonna get service? You still got somebody, are you still doing service for these guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not full-time. It's to a part-time deputy.
Would it be possible to put this thing off till next month, since this is considered a record now, right?
Not yet, because I have it. Once you guys vote on it, it can be record, yes.
Well, I need to see Schedule A.
Okay.
The thing is that by, it's up to you, we got a verbal understanding between the municipalities. This is the paperwork that would give the binding legal steps to have the contract. Otherwise, if some of this does not get completed, we stop services. And realistically, the ordinance enforcement that they're desiring would stop. The services that the sheriff's office provides the county would then be the service for that jurisdiction. Meaning that
they would fall in alignment with, sector assignments, et cetera. So this is really the committee's ability to, recognize that this extension and move forward, or if we go through different steps, that's fine. But this is my, presentation to the committee on this side letter to basically get us into a contract. Otherwise, it's just verbal. Otherwise, if it doesn't move forward, we just gotta cease the project, and then the services won't be provided to villages. That's what it is.
So once it's approved, where will it be posted?
This would be attached to the current contract, giving that extension, so the one would still survive as the legal binding contract record. This would be attached to it as a side letter, giving that extension for 26.
So when I say where is it posted? Is it gonna be posted on old files somewhere? Is it gonna be a record in here in our committee? How as a county supervisor, where do I go to say, okay, I wanna see this contract and this side letter?
We have it,
Come to your office and ask you to pull it out?
well, that's a good question. We're part of creating the record through legal and other means. Signatures on it would give the impression that the record's more than just the sheriff's office.
Right.
So I'd have to ask Cindy, what is the county's policy on contracts, where they're housed and who's the custodian once it's finalized? Because we do have it. I mean, it's not that,
With the exception of DHHS, most contracts are in my office. However, I believe the last several years, the sheriff's office has retained their own contracts. Because you've signed them,
on certain ones, yes.
correct? So I would think the side letter should be attached to the original contract, which I don't believe I have.
Sure, and it could be provided. It's not.
Right.
a-
I've got the original agreement saved on my iPad because I know that it's very difficult to retrieve stuff. So, because it's not available, all files, or going onto the county website to get it, right? So in reviewing a side letter like that, what I would normally do is compare it to the original agreement. So I'm making sure I'm looking at apples to apples, so if there's any references back and forth that everything matches. Now, and then that's why I asked the question the way I did is, once this is approved, where is it housed? Because it wasn't forwarded to the committee ahead of time. I didn't have the opportunity to save it in my own file for reference, which makes it difficult as oversight to do oversight. When I can't readily get at information to do research, that makes it difficult for oversight. The same way that it bringing something to us in the last minute makes it difficult to have effective oversight. So, once this is approved, at a minimum, would you at least forward it to us so I can save it in my own iPad, so I can at least reference it? And if you want to work with the county clerk and figure out how it is the rest of the county supervisors have ready access to this material so we can properly research things, I think we should work on that overall as a county.
As a comment, then I'm looking for legal guidance on the custodian of that record. So basically, it's available. It'll be forwarded to the clerk's office. They can be the official custodian. By law, somebody has to be the custodian of said record. It does touch many people, and it attaches to the village for their records as well. So there's a village record of some sort on the contract as well. So it's housed in many places, but the talking point would be, it's still a record and should be requested and viewed and inspected as a record under law.
And typically for most committees, anything that is handed out, I receive a copy of it to put it with the committee record. I don't have that.
Right.
I don't have any problem forwarding a copy to the committee members to have on your computer. Proves here today. Question, maybe submit it to the court counsel for a legal answer. Charge, it should be a open record.
It's an open
It's-
record. That's not a question. It's an open record.
It's accessibility to the record and where it's housed. That's the question.
for a motion that we forward a copy of this after it is approved, if it is approved, to the committee members. To put on their computer for.
I got a question. How much coverage? Okay, so you all are still covering all these municipalities already
By law.
by law. With these contracts that we have with the municipalities, how much of a difference does that make as far as being covered? Because there's a lot of municipalities in here. So basically this person runs from one municipality to the other. Is that what they're doing, is patrolling specifics?
The purpose of this cooperative agreement is to provide municipality or villages with ordinance enforcement in conjunction with things that are attached to
Sure.
State statutes. So in essence, it creates its own identity and allows ordinance enforcement. Not having this contract, we could not enforce their ordinances, which they desire to have done. If we don't have this or the contract, they would not have the enforcement, or they have to use a different method, whatever's written in the ordinance, to affect that ordinance enforcement. We just bridge that and then work cooperatively together, so it's a certified law enforcement officer or deputy. Why it's important, we serve the other jurisdictions completely when persons are not in the work or on duty, but we can only go as far as our ordinances allow in the state statute. So we're limited, and it can't be done unless we have an agreement.
Are these ordinances mirrored, like say one ordinance from Maryland versus Hickston? Are they relatively close, or does that person have to be schooled in all the different ordinances for those municipalities?
Kind of both. They're similar, but each ordinance is specific to that jurisdiction. So we'd have to know all the language, parameters, et cetera, of the ordinance.
So they would definitely have a lot more coverage with this person.
They need a lot more knowledge in regards to enforcement.
Okay, and you say that it's more or less a part-timer that does something like that?
Today it is. Before 3 years, we attempted to have a full-time, but during that time, we had staffing crisis and not being able to fill our own staff. So we were not able to complete our sector assignments. We weren't able to assign this one and get it completed. So this one was on hold. But the villages had a desire, and we had a person working Village of Taylor, the town of Millston have contracts. They asked if they could have a similar for that, and that's what we did in the interim. It did go away from the contract, but it was their wishes to have ordinance enforcement, and we modified internally operations to provide that said service.
And how much time do those normal, the contracted deputy, spend in those municipalities? Does he just like a couple hours here, a couple hours there? Is that what happens? It goes from, it rotates or patrols?
It was based on 1,950 hours employee. The percentage breakdown was initially 50% Maryland, 25 Elma Center, 12.5 for Hickston, and 12.5 Jackson. That was adjusted in the past because Maryland had to make some adjustments and didn't have the cost. They then reduced with a different side letter, very similar to what we're doing right now, to 25%. Elma Center's 25. Hickston stayed status quo at 12.5. And then we went to 37.5. That is budgeted in the current 26 budget. That being said, that is based on a full-time staff. We still don't have that. We can't hire it. Well, we could now. We probably could now because we're able to. But on the side, on the discussion and the finance on Hickston, not Hickston as much as the other municipalities didn't budget that. And we respect that and didn't want to put somebody in that position so we can hire full-time. We stayed part-time. And I think that was the most fiscally responsible step to do, stay within the budget and spending.
Thanks.
Bill? Yeah, I just wanted to mention, on Russ's question, when the contract was first laid out, the villages did coordinate, and I know Maryland changed their ordinances so that they could be better aligned with the others, so there was an effort to do that.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Bill.
Any other discussion? Entertain a motion? Approve.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Ron to approve the side letter.
So it was, Okay, so that's a draft, but if we approve it today, that's your agreement between,
How I see it is that right now it's subject to change based on what the wishes of the committee have. So not having that red line version pending, the most could be as an amendment by you guys on language that's incorporated with the motion or approving what's presented.
so, but if we approve this today, we can always amend it in March. I don't know why we have to amend it. I think we're complicating this process a little bit, but we always have that right to amend this contract in the future, right?
Well, yeah, and I think what you're finding is that this is only sub one, section 1A, sub 1 is basically identifying, continuing the contract. The contract is a document, it's presented, it's been voted on. And then in addition to that, we did add, making sure we get the information to the municipalities in a timely fashion, basically. There's two areas that have been adjusted. Everything else in this language is in the contract.
Okay.
So what you're reading is an extension of the contract, just cut and paste into this side letter, so it's read in this fashion versus not. The contract's available, it didn't change. And if Schedule A needs to be seen, I understand it. But it's really been that way for years. The Schedule A is what I said earlier, so we're not changing anything. The most that you gotta take away from this is just allowing the sheriff's office to work with the municipalities to maintain said services, adjust the spending because of the situation we're in with funding, using the part-time, et cetera, and then working ourselves into a 27 contract. And that'll be pumping the brakes, slowing down and modifying language, which would then come back to this said committee for discussion. So we're really only saying, let's keep working with the villages. That's all this is.
You need a second. I'll second that.
Second from Max. All in favor, roll call vote. Ron? Russ?
Aye.
Ron?
Yes.
Bill?
No, see, Schedule A.
Yes.
Yes. Very. And, Sheriff, can you provide a copy or to Cindy so she can put it on everybody's computer?
We will discuss that and find out where the record should be housed, and then that'll be easier for this committee to understand where it's at.
Discuss an act on PSAP quotes. Captain?
So I've got two main, large purchases for this PSAP grant.
Oh,
These are the originals, so forgive me. There are two quotes in there. One is for the 911 next gen software, and the other one is for the furniture. The furniture is Evans Company, they're out of Texas, and the other one is Dick Bus and Associates, who's out of southern Wisconsin. We've worked with one of them in the past. Both of those quotes are pretty close the same. I was working with them to kind of mock up with our current situation, what that furniture would look like. It's roughly very similar features. I mean, there's a suggestion I would go with the slightly cheaper one. They're both around $95,000. And the PSAP grant again is able to match with 10%. So we would have to come up with that 10%. So it's a very slight difference in pricing on that. Then the other is a Vesta quote, which is the next gen 911 software that we're looking to go to. There's a considerable difference going straight from Motorola, which is a Motorola product. We already have a lot of Motorola products, so the interface is really easy. The transition should be very easy too. Yes, it's quite a difference. One is 456,000, and then the other one is around what we originally were approved for and budgeted for, which is about 268,000. You're asking me, I would suggest going with the cheaper. This is also through Baycom.
So this is Motorola.
Yes, they're both Motorola products. Motorola is the one on the left. Baycom is a company that's authorized a vendor of Motorola,
Okay.
and they're local. They're out of La Crosse. They help us with other interoperability systems with paging already. They're a decent company as well. Motorola is a good company too. We work with them as well. Again, it's much cheaper to go this route, and it seems like it meets all of our needs compared to both of those quotes.
So what type of, is this Motorola soft hardware to it or?
Yes,
Okay.
the software is. The hardware would be just a normal computer station.
Oh,
Which it would include all brand new computer equipment, which comes outdated.
Okay.
And as far as I know, that equipment is not something that, the, IT department replaces. So that's something on us, and that would be included in the quote itself to replace all that equipment.
Can you refresh us? I always get confused. So this is the next gen 911, and what's the advantages? You can text, right, on this one?
Correct. So one of the main, there's a few different big advantages. One, it's a kind of a refresh and an update to an updated system. We're allowing, it's a big move nationwide and statewide to go to texting, which allows you to text 911. And then another big thing is the new security features. As you can imagine, 2026 in modern times, computer security is being challenged quite a bit. This updated software will be in compliance with federal standards, state standards. We're working very closely with military folks that are a part of this PSAP grant coordinated. They're in favor of this, essentially they approved this product because of that security as well. Big upgrade, which is our last system, which I don't remember the last time we upgraded to CallWorks, was, I don't know if that was 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago.
I would have to look back. We went through Logicom to this, what we have today and now. We're doing this, so
Gotcha.
whenever E911, oh, that's a good question. Has to be right around that 2000 transition 15 or just thereafter. So, good question.
Yeah, speaking with some of the other folks that are involved, just kind of putting a litmus test or whatever you want to call it, a feeler out there. Other agencies that surround us also use Vesta too, so it's a product that is being used that seems to have good reputation as well. I think Trempealeau, Clark, Adams, some other counties use that. The Magicom that we used to use, as far as I've been told, that nobody else uses Magicom anymore. And it doesn't mean that it's not a good product, doesn't mean it doesn't work. But often we rely on support from either the vendor itself or others that are in kind of a community group, like in our Spillman or Flex. We have folks that we say, hey, you know, are you having issues with this or how do we do that? It's easier for me to call or even stop over if I need to at a local agency to say, hey, our folks are having struggles with this. How do we do this better? Or how do we work with this? That also includes training too, that people from Vesta will actually come in and train all of our people as well, which is a big, I want to say complaint, but when we introduce new technology to our staff, that is one of their concerns, is that they don't get direct training from actual vendors. They get it from us, who are kind of ipso facto the admin to that. For the Watson, I was able to, because they are local, they brought over a trailer. The trailer had a setup in there with dispatch. The complaints that I received from, again, I don't want to say complaints, the concerns that I have from employees is often temperature. It's usually either too cold in the comm center or too hot in the comm center. And all of these, both of these vendors provide consoles that have and furniture that have heating fans independently for each station. They also have hiding of wires, and it prevents a lot of the concerns or issues that I have, which is over time, because this needs a refresh, wires and everything start to hang out and people's feet start to touch them and move them and disconnect. And now, which is not my expertise, I now become, involved in trying to make things work. A lot of the furniture that we had purchased 12, 13 years ago, the pneumatic or whatever you like to say, the motors for the adjustments are failing. And they're very, very expensive, as you can see, to replace a lot of that. It's long past the warranty, so it wouldn't cover those as well. And it's been brought up to me as a manager from employees that ergonomics is extremely important, and it is a well-known concern or topic of any workplace. And if we don't abide by ergonomics, it could affect sick time, it could affect just overall health or morale as well. So the ability to adjust a lot of those features, either the table itself, the monitors, is extremely conducive to a happy work environment and a very safe work environment. And both of those are modern companies that do provide both of those.
funding for the furniture and the hardware and software for the next gen, those are all 90% grants?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yep. And we've been pre-approved when we did apply for the grant for those, and it's under this budget would be not the 400,000, that would be over budget and probably wouldn't end up getting approved, but to try to make sure that we're getting as many quotes or multiple quotes according to, I think it's ordinance chapter 3, that we have to seek out quotes, see what's the best quote that we can get.
Where's the funding coming from? Like for the 90%? Is it state something or is it FEMA or?
I believe it's
It's a state grant, falls under Wisconsin DMA.
Okay.
DMA.
Department of Military Affairs.
Isn't it used from the 911 surcharge? That's where the money actually comes
Oh,
from, the
okay.
surcharge.
Like
that
when you pay a
everybody
full
pays.
bill?
Hmm?
Yeah, okay.
Persons we work with, DMA, Department of Military Affairs. So somehow through the grant process, I don't know where the actual funding, if it's what you just said,
Yeah,
but I know that it was a grant that's typically awarded to PSAPs to definitely reduce and offset the cost of the levy. And it's been used, most counties are using.
and I think that's do it. We would still be 1975 probably, because this stuff's expensive and no way a county can actually afford it on their own.
You would have to make the decision if you don't do it,
Right.
then you're gonna 100% pay for it someday.
Yeah,
It just went.
yeah. That's just kind of a good way to encourage people, hey, we'll cover 90% of this to get it done.
I think it's their effort at the
Yeah.
state and wherever the funding's coming from to make sure that the efforts are completed in timely fashion. And
So what's WISCOM? As those guys read, guys ask some questions. You know, I got a grant application. I think I sent it to you, Chief. I forwarded it back. Yes, don't worry about it because we're not in WISCOM. Is that more of a metro power system?
it's not on the agenda. I don't think we should get it.
Oh, okay.
But it could be something discussed in the future.
No,
It might be more appropriate for tower discussion, but
This is for my information.
I
only.
know.
A side conversation.
there you go. That might be more appropriate.
I gotta say this, it sure would be nice to have this stuff in advance.
I think one thing that could be done here is, when you present this, present each committee member with a copy of it.
Well,
It takes a lot for it to be.
this was on the agenda for action last month. The date on that's February 13th. The date on this one's January 16th, I think. This is January 22nd. So this stuff could have easily been supplied to the committee well in advance of. Should have been before last meeting. Because it was on the agenda for action last week.
Well, I gave guidance on that. The copies were not presented based on the actual record until I get a certification of records from legal counsel is presented as you have received it today, access to material.
So there's some of these on this one that are listed optional. Does that mean you want these options that they're on this, or this is what they presented?
That's just how they presented it.
So will you be providing me these so I can put them with the record or not?
Depends on what the actions taken today, I would assume. Yeah.
So. Do we want these optional ones, optional items here? What's?
And I would stick with the budget. If it's optional to add, I would not add it. If it's stated as budget. If that's the one that's provided, that's 268,000. That's what we had budgeted, so I would not option for those items if they would increase the budget.
So if the budget's 268, you said,
Yes.
well, the options are included in the budget.
If they're included, then they're included.
So we need the options or not? That was my original question.
that's a recommendation from the vendor. So if they're giving options, if that wants to be cut out, that could be cut out as well. That's the vendor, they're our expert, and you're relying on persons that don't deal with this regularly. It is how it's presented. So if it's within the budget, we would extend that, yes, we would like to stay within the budget parameters and get as much as we can out of the spending of this funding as we can for the PSAP.
Just like anything, these are quotes. So with the furniture, depending on how we transition and install those items, there might be a way to save cost by constructing it ourselves. I'll tell you, we don't have necessarily all the staff that are capable of doing that. Moving the actual computer components would be already listed in our grant and covered by our grant for the temporary relocation or at least the remodeling of it. And that would be either paid through a local vendor that's able to do it. We could save some costs by deconstructing it ourselves. Not afraid of, running a impact or something myself, as long as it doesn't require much technical expertise. I can certainly take something apart, clear a scene or clear a room to save on their time.
Rick had a question.
So with this new furniture, does it need more power? Additional power? I know there's plenty of power up there, but some of this stuff needs.
And I can ask too,
I can answer, they received specs of information about how it was there, so nothing was indicated that additional power was needed. The dimensions, everything where else, and Watson, for example, for furniture, is our past vendor, so he had that available to him. And he or whoever sent it didn't indicate additional outside resources like power or connectivity was needed. Not saying that still won't be discussed and it comes up in discussions, but we still also have to work with IT, some different movements, where we go, what happens, et cetera, during the process. So we're really early into it. This is just securing the next phase of spending within the budget to proceed with the state to get this done.
so can you summarize what's the difference between the two? Right, there's a big price difference here. So I can't look at them right now and say, okay, this is $200,000 more because it provides this. So what's the difference between the two packages? Can you summarize that? Sure. As far as I understand, that the training, the equipment, the software is the same. I think if I had to guess, if you see that last page where it's 400,000, it talks about 5 years. So this grant does not cover any extended warranties or anything like that. So I could seek out if they would take off any type, if there is an extended warranty on there, to talk about that and take that off, because it will only do a one lump sum. This is that. And, so we must pay yearly costs for other like record management system maintenance. So it doesn't say that once we buy this and we'll never have any costs again, because there's always some type of maintenance. And they might be rolling it all into one, but it's not covered by our grant specifically. So if that is the case, that would explain why there's continual, coverage, and then putting it all into one 5-year block.
The grant doesn't allow you to, or doesn't qualify extended warranties. And I would agree, that's probably the difference.
Well, now I'm gonna look at it again, see if that's actually the case.
stuff looks pretty expensive. It's, you know, 15-foot single USB 8 data black cord, $47.50. I realize that when you start talking government, they like to dig you, you know, I understand that.
You wanna look at these again, Bill?
Yeah, I do.
All right, here, take a look at those. All right, I don't-
Actually, it's the other one.
Sorry, another one.
I know, the $456,000
Yeah.
monster. Yeah.
Are you done reading?
Where's that itemized sheet for the $450,000? There.
Got it right there?
No, it's the way, that's it, but it doesn't show. It's just a number, it doesn't, there's nothing itemized, so you can't tell
Yeah,
what it is that you're actually paying for, other than something.
yeah, there's no breakdown of costs.
Five, that's 97.
It's just that one number, the big one.
Do you have any recommendations that you would like to make in reference to these?
I think it's much more cost efficient to go with the two cheaper ones. I think you're getting equivocal, items from both. Again, I'm not affiliated with any of these companies, but one is from Wisconsin. So you tend to get a little bit more of a response, or at least logistically, might decrease any type of complications with shipping or deliveries or install with a local company, but that's just my kind of 2 cents on that. I think it would fit our needs for either, but I would go with the cheaper of the two. That would be my.
My recommendation is to take action on the lower Vesta Baycom. We'd recommend that one, and then I believe the Watson or Dick Bus both, so that we can continue to move forward with this project.
What's the timeline? If we approve this today, is there, when will they think we'll have installation?
That would be fine. We'll find that out once we have the next meeting, I believe. It is outlined somewhat of a timeline, and I know we're a little bit behind, but not too bad.
It'll be this year though, right?
The goal is have it all installed this year, and then the most that would be left for the last, it's an 18-month cycle would be training and things that are well within our means, but the bulk of the spending is anticipated spending within this calendar year, so we don't have to extend into a different calendar year and books and stuff like that. So we're hopefully get it done this year.
Is it much different? Like your applications and how they do the call, your CAD, is that different with the new system? When it comes to training?
Sorry.
Is this new system gonna be a lot different for how it works and handles and?
Versus CallWorks, what does it look like?
Yeah,
It's very similar. It's functions the exact same, except it now allows for texting and
Oh,
such. For the actual call entry itself, you mean for like the data entry?
well, we're not going to a whole new core system, right? Like, it's gonna be very similar.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes, nobody will know outside of the public aside from
Well,
being able to text.
I'm worried like the workers, like they're not gonna have a huge steep learning curve.
No,
Okay, because sometimes businesses switch their whole core software, and it's like, oh my god.
correct. You're
Takes
talking about a record management
Yeah.
system? No, this is actually they have like 7 or 8 screens up. And
Yeah.
thankfully we have people that are much more tech savvy and very comfortable with new technology, but to them, the record management system is the same. That's Spillman or Flex.
Okay,
We have a call taking next gen 911, or which would be this,
Mhm.
and then they have paging software.
okay,
And so it would just be changing one of those components because it doesn't require a lot of effort, like the furniture would. I would imagine that the furniture is gonna take a lot more time to work with facilities and everybody else to try to make sure that this works.
okay.
So what do we have currently budgeted for this? Do we have any line item right now in the budget for implementation next
So
year?
the budget that was approved through the grant process is that, the software, is right around at 268. So you gotta remember, they asked for quotes for the contract. I'm sorry, to approve this grant. So, it stays in alignment with the Vesta quote because they're one of the main providers of giving the estimates of spending. So it's 268,401. And Watson Dispatch was also a vendor that gave the quote. And they were quoted at 102,621, but I think that's since changed. There's some credit or some things have changed since they've estimated. This was all being done in 25, so you gotta remember things are different. But that's what we had to get set by this grant.
That's the grant budgets,
Yep,
right?
yep.
I'm talking the 10% that we have to pay for.
So the 10% is gonna be discussed, and we had actually had a motion or a resolution that would give spending on this issue use of Ho-Chunk funds.
So it comes from Ho-Chunk funds.
Yep, so we did that, and
We don't have it currently budgeted for,
technically, well, I don't know how you see it, but you guys voted to have Ho-Chunk funds
Right,
fund
it's
this
not a
issue.
county budget, it's already been approved for Ho-Chunk funds.
Okay,
to pay the
that's-
10%.
So the money's there.
So we about 30.
and how much is that?
we about
How much
30.
did we,
7+.
so we could go with the 456,000.
No, because he
Contract.
still has to follow the grant budget.
Yeah, we would
Okay,
still,
so it's-
they would only pay for certain portions.
Okay.
That's the grant,
Okay.
WI, EMA. They do the oversight on.
So we've already budgeted for it.
We're hopeful.
It'll be about 36,000 should be our 10% match for the furniture and the software.
Yeah, these are the two biggest purchases. Everything else falls a little bit much less.
Okay,
Could you throw some of those options in there too?
The interpretation is the options are included.
Okay.
So if something changes, we'll let you know, but I still think we can only spend what
Right.
we have in the budget.
Okay, we have 4 bids. Evans at 97,875.40. Vista 911 at 268,401.
Show them how you wanted to rate. Evans and Watson are the two competing furniture. And Vesta, Motorola and Baycom are the two competing quotes on Vesta. So I'm gonna show them that. So it kind of stays in alignment. Whatever number he's giving, I don't want to get confused.
So it's gonna be the total of those two.
This would be.
They're bidding 2 separate.
We need one approved, but 2 quotes. So we to choose. Our recommendation is to go with Watson, but it's your choice to accept the quotes or the funding or the.
We have the other Vista.
One's Motorola Solutions and one is Baycom, to keep them separate. And the quotes do vary a little bit.
There's a 456,704.01. Those are the committee's preference. Motion,
I make a motion, we, go with the cheaper. The lower price,
okay, the Evans Watson,
yeah,
Watson. Watson would be cheaper, right? As presented. And the other one would be, I don't know if you do them separate. I don't know if it's
Well,
easier.
why don't we do it separate? I think it's already here, so. Yeah, so this is the one for the
Furniture.
furniture at 95,000.
95,000, 12.50.
That's covered under the grant.
Yeah, we're budgeted for 102.
Okay.
We're within budget.
I'll second Russell's motion that we take the lower of the two bids at 95,000 and change.
And then the Evans,
Well, why don't we vote on that one?
That's separate. You're choosing one of the two.
we have a motion on the floor for first and second motion for Watson at 95,000, 12.50. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Now, it's the other two, Motorola and Playcom, so they're separate quotes.
Have one from Vista Map
That's big.
at 268,401. And then we have one from Vista 911
Yeah, Motorola.
at Motorola for 456,704.01. And that was just out of it.
Yep, they're done now.
I'll make a motion, we take the Baycom, right? Baycom's the cheaper one?
Paycom is within budget.
Yeah, take the Baycom one at 268,000 and change.
I'll second it.
And that is covered, right? That is covered.
That's what's covered.
Okay.
A motion by Mac to take the 268,401 bid.
A second.
Bill will second it. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes. Ron?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Okay, we're done. Okay, then discuss and act hazard mitigation plan. I don't know if everybody here has met our new emergency government director. I'll let the sheriff introduce her.
Yeah, Cindy Jeffson, comes from DHHS, has a background in EM, so she's been on board now for, maybe a little bit. And she's here today, so she has some information to provide.
All right, come on board on January 19th, hit the ground running, because we had some grants that were due by January 31st. We got those submitted, the ECRA and the computer and hazmat response equipment grant. Got those submitted. And I think you guys, do they have a copy of my notes? Okay. Oh, got it. All right, I'll disregard on that then. This multi-hazards mitigation plan, was a resolution that was, that you guys signed back on 19th of October of 2020. It's I've got some talking points here. The purpose of this multi-hazard mitigation plan, properly addresses the federal requirements of the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, making the county and other local governments and participants in the planning process eligible for federal hazard mitigation programs. These programs can assist in planning, relocation, infrastructure projects, and they reduce and sometimes eliminate the losses of damages that happen with hazards. The plan allows Jackson County and other jurisdictions that adopted and approved the plan to be eligible to apply for these FEMA hazard mitigation grant funding. Grant funds can be used for doing hazard mitigation projects, tornado safe rooms, flood and land prone acquisitions, power line burial projects. So if people wanted to put their power lines from their property underground, they could. Plan identifies potential mitigation projects that Jackson County and participating jurisdictions may like to implement. Local mitigation plans is the representation of Jackson County's commitment to reduce risks and natural hazards, serving as a guide for decision makers as they commit resources to reducing the effects of natural hazards. It's a statutory requirement for local governments to apply for the FEMA hazard mitigation grant program and to have a plan, which we do. This comes from the 44 Code of Federal Regulations. Local plans also serve as a basis, for the state to provide technical assistance and to prioritize funding. It is also required when applying for the BRIC, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Available Annually, and that's what Jack had tried applying for before, but I'll catch that later. Flood mitigation assistance available annually for flood mitigation projects, and the legislative pre-disaster mitigation available when Congress appropriates funds to mitigate projects. These appropriate funds, are somewhat annual, and Wisconsin had appropriations back in 2022 and 2023. What happens when the multi-hazard mitigation plan is expired? Well, this plan here is dated 2020 to 2024, Jackson County. The plans are good for 5 years. Plan was approved on February 19th of 2021, and as of yesterday, the plan expired. When the plan is expired, the county and other participating jurisdictions are ineligible for applying for FEMA hazard mitigation assistance funds. If the county or other jurisdictions wanted to apply for mitigation funding while the plan is expired, Wisconsin Emergency Management could submit a letter of extraordinary circumstances to FEMA Region 5 for the review and approval. If approved by FEMA, the county or jurisdiction would still be eligible for applying for these grants, but they would have to come up with an updated plan within 12 months. Is there an updated when the funds could be released to update the current plan? Like I said, Jack tried with the BRIC grant in 2023. It made it through the FEMA review process, but it was not officially awarded by FEMA before the BRIC program was canceled in April of 2025. A recent lawsuit ordered FEMA to reinstate the BRIC program. So far, when Wisconsin Emergency Management has not received any information and what it would look like. If the program truly does come back, we can try funding it through that route. Beyond that, Wisconsin Emergency Management does not have any access to any other funding to update this plan. If we update the current plan without using any grant funds, will the county be reimbursed? So say I could start the plan and start to update the plan now. No, we wouldn't be reimbursed for to get this grant funding. Previous cost to update the plan was approximately $40,500. It was a cooperative cost-sharing agreement with the Mississippi River Regional Planning Commission, which they paid. It was $30,375. It was a 75% grant portion, and Jackson County's portion was 25%, and it was $10,125. Worst case scenario, Jackson has a disaster and our plan is not updated. Would Jackson County receive a disaster declaration? Jackson County still could receive a disaster declaration, but the county and its jurisdictions would not be eligible to apply for any mitigation funding. Wisconsin Emergency Management could try to submit a letter of extraordinary circumstances, what I mentioned before, to get around that temporarily. Jackson County would still be eligible to receive public assistance funding, just not hazard mitigation dollars that could become available when a disaster is declared. Does the mitigation plan impact private homeowners? Yes, in a way. Private homeowners cannot apply directly through Wisconsin Emergency Management to FEMA for mitigation funding. The county or their jurisdictions need to apply on their behalf. To apply, there needs to be a current and approved hazard mitigation plan in place for mitigation funding. This would not prohibit private homeowners from just applying to receive FEMA individual assistance, just mitigation dollars. What is the criteria for a presidential disaster declaration? Each county has a dollar threshold that needs to be met for the governor to submit a disaster declaration request to the president. A federal declaration, Wisconsin statewide, must meet a per capita threshold, and that's $1.94 times the state population, comes over a little 11.4 million. Once the statewide damages exceed 11.4 million, each county must also meet its per capita threshold, and that's for the county itself, it's $4.86 times the county population. So in Wisconsin, the 2026 damage threshold for disaster assistance is $102,764.70 in public infrastructure damages. Just because the state and counties reach that number, that doesn't mean it's automatically going to get approved. You remember the flooding and storms that happened back last August of 2025. There's severe storms flooding that occurred in Grant, Door, and southeast Wisconsin counties. The governor that was August 8th through the 12th. August 27th, the governor requested FEMA for federal public assistance. On October 23rd, 2025, initial denial by FEMA happened. On November 18th of 2025, Wisconsin Emergency Management appealed FEMA's denial, and then they received notice on February 7th that the final determination for federal assistance was denied. At that time, Wisconsin's public assistance threshold was $11.5 million. Documented infrastructure dollars for that incident were in excess of 23 million. So just because they meet those thresholds, it's not going to happen. We need to ensure that our local elected officials have realistic expectations of the likelihood of a federal disaster assistance happening. This determination has nothing to do with the status, because I asked that question. Did all of the counties have this plan? Was it updated? And this determination, this denial had nothing to do with if they had a plan or is in place. And I asked also, is the Jackson County the only one in this predicament? No, Jackson County was not the only one impacted by this. Under the BRIC 23 grant that Jack tried applied for, 9 other counties were impacted. That was Ozaukee, Columbia, Fond du Lac, Wood, La Crosse, Washburn, Dodge, Bayfield, and Waupaca counties. Wisconsin Emergency Management planned on submitting grants for counties under the BRIC 24 grant, and that also was canceled as well. And that impacted Buffalo, Door, Douglas, Marathon, Sheboygan, Waukesha, and Winnebago counties at that time. In 2025, Milwaukee County had their flooding incident, and Milwaukee County's plan was expired in 2023. Milwaukee County is actively updating it and has been approved by FEMA. The governor submitted the disaster declaration along requests that included public assistance and hazard mitigation grant funding. However, the request was denied for them also. Wisconsin Emergency Management appealed that denial, but they haven't heard anything yet. I checked with our regional director that we go through. If the BRIC funding doesn't come through to pay for a contractor, her thoughts were you could certainly update it on your own or hire a limited term employee to assist. While we don't know what emergency management planning requirements will be, I best suggestion would be to change your integrated preparedness plan to include updating the hazard mitigation plan now. And then another option is Buffalo County, they purchased, everybody's heard of AI, they purchased artificial intelligence software specific for emergency management functions for and that costs $3,000 a year for the software. Or the county comes up with the funding. This morning, I did receive an email from the state at 6:52. And the lady that does the state hazard mitigation program, Jackson County was in the process of applying for the BRIC sub-grant under the FEMA or the federal fiscal year of 2023. The sub-application had been selected for further review by FEMA, and I worked with Jack to respond to FEMA's request for information. We had everything answered, but ultimately could not submit the request for information response due to a technical issue with FEMA Go. FEMA Go is the online platform that they use to submit the application. While we're trying to work out the issues with FEMA, the BRIC program was canceled in April. A lawsuit was filed with some states to overturn the cancellation of the BRIC program. A judge ordered FEMA to reinstate the BRIC program back in December of last year. FEMA has not heard anything from FEMA about the program when it will be reinstated. Once we do, it's possible that Jackson County could receive funding to update the hazard mitigation plan. I was set to start working on this plan. At this point, the state is recommending that Jackson County waits to hear what happens with the BRIC, and if it gets reinstated, please be sure not to start any part of the plan update process. If you do, the Jackson County will become ineligible for FEMA funding. I know the plan is expired, but we do not have any funding available for mitigation projects, and with changes at the federal level, we don't know when it will. If the disaster were to occur in Jackson County while the plan is expired, a letter of extraordinary circumstances could be submitted to FEMA. If approved, this allows jurisdictions to still apply as long as Jackson County updates, approves, and adopts a plan within 1 year of the FEMA letter approval. So she's pushing FEMA to move the sub-grant forward, should she get word on it, that we can do that. Kind of read off a lot of information here at that time. Questions you got for me? Yes, the plan is expired, how it's been brought.
I'm just curious, what do you foresee is what we would have to change to update?
Well, a lot of the document has, Census Bureau stuff from back in the era, before 1999. So a lot of that stuff, the maps, different things would have to be updated. Surveys, I know they sent out, when they did this plan, they sent a mess of surveys out, and you guys probably received one of them at that time, to get people's input of what they're thinking of the ranking of different things. And I think, when the surveys were completed before hailstorms, winter storms, cold temperatures, that kind of stuff was the top priorities at that time. But it would just be meetings, to get people's input from and buy-in from the other parts of the county.
Do you know, how long did it take us to update last time,
12 to 16 months. But that was with Mississippi River Regional Planning doing the grant.
Do you think we would use them again? Like, so if we get the funding from FEMA, would we use?
Yeah, definitely, because it was already lined up with them.
Mhm.
Everything was a go other than the funding disappeared.
Okay.
And now with the current where that's at right now, they're not in session right now, so because of stuff going on, so, yeah. It would be a 75-25% match again, just like it's been before.
Did they have any bids? Like, was it gonna be 40,000 again, or was they gonna charge more? This is a long time ago, I'm sure.
Yeah, where's my chicken scratches?
I remember when I was working with community management, Tom Cooper had reached out to Mississippi Valley Regional. And they had proposed a cost of not to exceed 37,000.
So deflation, it went down.
Well, it was,
Probably helps if they have like a roadmap to work with too. so they
Yeah,
have less time.
and it looks like it was gonna be for this year at 40,500.
Okay.
Yep, and last time it was 40,000, yeah, right around.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hopefully, right? So,
I'm hoping FEMA gets back and they
Yeah.
start, yeah.
So basically, I don't think the committee needs to act, just be aware of the information, and we're working off the guidance of the state and some federal guidance on this issue to try to reduce any costs to the county and wait for that grant to come back in session, or maybe allow FEMA to make that decision on what's next.
I did get, access to that FEMA Go, so I have access, and I printed off the documents that Jack had inputted there, so we're ready to input again if, we do get the word to do it again, so.
I think what's nice is that she emphasized, don't get started or don't get ahead of yourself, otherwise you're gonna out. So take that very seriously, so we don't exclude ourselves from the grant as well.
Or the other option is you just forego the grant altogether, and just, the county pays the money.
That is an option, yes.
But I think it was important to bring it back here, make sure everybody's aware that if we do start proceeding on this, then we're on our own. It's not a small amount.
Yeah, because if the county goes and starts and pays for the grant now, and then say next week or in a month, Rick opens back up that we can't apply, we can't get that money reimbursed.
We're asking us to take no action.
Yes. Unless you see differently. That's our recommendation from.
As of her email this morning, she's saying to sit on it.
follow the state guidelines and.
Okay, fun. Power updates.
So, I'll talk a little bit about the bad news first, and then Sheriff can get on good. So the bad news is that, as we've talked about in the past, our stuff is at end of life and continues to fail. So the week of January 12th, 2026, we had a clock tower fail. The Brockway Tower, I believe it was. I had reached out to, Chairman Rebecki, Chairman Amo, and, Cindy, and it was, discussed that, hey, this is important, keep this thing moving. The estimate we got on it and ultimate bill on it was $8,890 is what we're having to pay for them to come in and take care of that. It's something we need to have those towers working. So they have since come in, took care of getting that clock installed. And that's what that cost was on that. And then as soon as the cold snap happened, then we had the Taylor Tower, start acting up. When they first came out, they told me they thought that clock tower was bad, but the good news on that one is we worked with facilities. Figured out it was something as simple as the batteries had gone bad inside the actual thermostat controller in there. So for the price of some AAA batteries, that one was fixed. And again, I cannot thank facilities enough for coming and helping out on that. So that we dodged a situation there. But I bring this to you to let you know that, yeah, this stuff is old and dated and is continuing to fail. All the good things.
Yeah, so, the tower project's moving forward. The consultant contract signed. We've had, discussion with the consultant, it's PSC. And they'll be here on the 25th to do a kickoff meeting. They are also anticipating doing a site of inspection or a review of the sites. They are the past persons that did the consultant, so it should go well. They're familiar with it. They probably are gonna move quite quickly on it. I don't know the timeline after that, so it looks to be that after the 25th, we should be able to report out some of the timeline or the expectations of the consultants on this issue. So that's the most I can tell you, but we are moving forward in the towers, or the upgrade.
Any questions? Okay. Maryland Railroad incident update.
Okay, back in December, it was brought up at the emergency management portion on division reports, asking for updated information on this. On your iPads there, you should have basically an overview of a 6-page or so report that I provided to you. But as a high level overview here, on December 7th, 2025 at about 9:18 PM, the National Railroad Police contacted the PSAP and advised them of a train derailment. At that point in time, they said they weren't looking for any kind of a response. They weren't looking for emergency responders out there. They were just letting us know, and the reason they were letting us know is because that's their policy. Additionally, they did advise that the cars that were impacted, the rail cars that were impacted, were carrying cracks in them. They advised there was no injuries, and, they were gonna be working on it. Throughout the night, they stayed in communication. You can see that in your stuff there. We had multiple communications with, Canadian National Railroad, police throughout the night as they're working through, going out, seeing what's going on, and they're starting cleanup efforts. And then ultimately, about 1:50 in the morning, WEAU called, asking if there's anybody they could speak with. The staff on duty did follow agency policy, which was to, they have to have supervisor approval before they can do any kind of a press release or speak to the media. So that was followed. And then I got notification about it at the next morning at about 8 AM when I woke up and read my communications on my phone. And at that point in time, again, going off the information, there was no request for any type of response from us whatsoever. And you'll notice in your packets there that I did include a picture of, from Beacon, which is the county website, that shows where it happened on there. It's on Railroad Road, at the railroad tracks there. You'll notice that I've also included a couple of news articles that a simple Google search got for me on, all I typed in was Maryland train derailment. And these were WEAU things that were published, on December 8th by 11:27 AM. You can see those articles there. Additionally, you'll see that there was a Facebook post that was posted by, the, Village of Maryland, that again has Canadian National's incident statements in there. And then the last thing in the packet you'll see there is 2 different sets of photos. And they cover basically overview scene images from when I went out there on the morning of the 9th, to see what was there. And then I also went up there as recently as yesterday to show what was, the scene looks like now, as we said yesterday afternoon. So that is a pretty quick overview of that. What specific questions you have for me on this, if any?
No questions?
So the protocols that were used by dispatch and management were appropriate?
Well, I think when you look at any type of an incident, you can always look at it and see, is there things that you can learn from or grow from or get better from? And so I certainly think there are things that when we look at this that, you know, can we get better from? Is it possible that the sheriff's office could have done a press release faster than Canadian National? I think it is. But at the same point in time, the information that was put out by Canadian National is the same information that we would put up, because we would have got it from. So I think that, you know, was the public notified in a timely manner? Well, there's an article on WEAU by 11:30 that morning saying there was, that what happened there, which would have been similar information to what we could have provided. As far as did the communication center provide notification to command staff? They did follow our proper, or our policy and provide command notification. At that point in time, based on the information they were provided, which was there was no request for assistance for anything, and Canadian National was handling it, I do think they acted appropriately to follow the policy. Now, could they have called us? Certainly they could have called us. But if the question is, that they commit a policy violation, I don't believe they did. Since then, prior to putting this together too, I've also reached out to the Wisconsin Commissioner's Office of Wisconsin Office of the Commissioner of the Railroads. And I've asked for documentation that was provided to them regarding this incident. They have told me that they're working on it. They're treating this an open records request, and they'll get that to me when they can. I've reached out to Canadian National too to say, hey, can we get an update on some of these things too, so I can provide that today. Unfortunately, they didn't provide it by the time of the meeting here today. I can't control how fast they can release information. If the question is was there any law enforcement up there at all? Well, the Canadian National Railroad Police were there, which they are law enforcement officers, and that was provided, their authority comes from under state statute 192 of the Wisconsin state statutes. So they are in fact a law enforcement agency. Another thing that we have done since then is, coincidental to this, was that we also had the entire patrol division as well as other local law enforcement officers attend the Wisconsin Operation Lifeline, or it's the railroad training that the Canadian National Union Pacific put on. That was done this week. And it was actually the recommendation in the training that, you know, you should not just show up at a derailment, and start walking around because of the hazards that are posed with it, as far as load shifting, rail ties that are under, or rail that's under tension. If there is anything that's tripping hazard, those sort of things. So, again, I think that, you know, could people criticize how this was responded to? I think they can certainly criticize things, but at the same point in time, I think there's also an understanding that, our response to this was, we weren't requested to provide anything. You know, yes, is there an interest because there's a rail derailment? Yes, I understand that, but at the same point in time, if this was another business that had a situation happen on theirs where, you know, because it's frac sand, we'll stick with frac sand. Had Badger Mining had a bunch of sand spill on Badger Mining's property, we wouldn't have necessarily went over there and did a bunch of things too. So I think they're part of that is, you know, Canadian National has the responsibility on this. And they're moving forward on it. They also did come down and talk to the clerk's office, the county clerk's office the next day too. So it's not like Canadian National wasn't working, if that makes sense. So I'm not sure if if that explains it, if there's other questions.
At what point does the county have responsibility for informing the public?
Well, I think the county has a responsibility to inform the public when there's a risk of public safety or.
How do we know there's no risk for public safety? We're government oversight. Yes, they make the call. Yes, we don't need assistance.
Sure.
Right? We validate that. They're a contractor. They're a private company. 3 Mile Island was a private company that said, no problem here, because there was no government oversight to say, no, we need to validate that.
I can answer that. I think what we're getting off track here is that,
We're not getting off track. I'm not getting off track.
Bill,
This is government responsibility, government oversight to assess the situation and ensure the public's informed.
think where we're getting off track is that this is a incident command decision to the involvement that the office is involved in, all the way to the county. And by having the rail system, which has actually got authority for that rail,
Right.
they would take the primary responsibilities on public notices and under the incident command. Even if we unified, it would be a unified approach to
Exactly.
that command. By questioning that authority and not working within the guidance and the expertise of those individuals in charge as incident command of the issue would be going beyond our responsibilities as a sheriff's office. Now, if the county sees it differently, like they should have gave out a notice, but within our policy procedures and how incident command works, we were well within our policy and procedures that have been taught and recognized throughout the whole nation. So yes, there might be some, did they do it? Did they check the boxes? Process, don't disagree. But as for the role of the sheriff's office, we fell within policy, procedures, and incident command. They were the commander of the issue within their authority of the rail. And it might be debated that they have a conflict of interest or something. I get it. But that goes beyond the borders of the sheriff's responsibility or emergency management when it was met. Now, you as a authority over the full county on notices might have a different perspective. I totally get it. We can debate that. But at the end of the day, we follow under protocols that we've been taught over the years of where we start and our authority. And I think we did exactly what it is. Could have a press release been put out, or could have we pushed out the media release that Canadian National did? Maybe. But it's not like there wasn't public notice of some sorts and notice of the county clerk's office of the issues, if there was any need for mitigation or risk. That's how I see it.
And that notice was timely?
It fell within the time, he already reported out on that, so it was the morning of.
Yeah.
I don't know what more we can report on that media release. Just because our name wasn't stamped to it, doesn't mean public was not notified. And I think that's where you're going with this.
No, where I'm going with it is interaction between the county and the railroad.
And that-
Agreement in what the hazard was or was not. So that there is unification in the press release.
And that was
So
answered.
that the county knows that you had roads closed, that emergency response couldn't get through. That's how the village president knew that the occurrence had happened, was because Highway 12 was blocked and the rails guards were down and they weren't coming up. Dispatch didn't know that.
I think we're presenting the information, Chair. And we can debate that at another time. I think we're getting off track.
Okay, let's move on. Visual reports. On your iPads. Questions?
I do have one request, for the emergency planning. um, If you would, for a future meeting in your report, this week at LPAC, you, mentioned all the spills from 2025. In the past, we've had discussions about whether or not we should have a hazmat team in the county. Just want to make it available for that if we decide. Could you give us a report for those spills, what the response time was, and if there's any outstanding actions necessary for any of it? And if you have a recommendation of whether or not the hazardous substance response teams, if their responses are meeting expectations, just
Some of the,
from an annual
yeah,
basis.
some of those spills happen and either the cleanup company that they have for the tractor trailer or the company that does the cleanup itself. Or like the tow company, he'll come out and he'll bring, stuff to put on the spill to clean it up that way. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, we've just debated in the past of whether or not we should have our own response team. And so as it's the end of the year, you've got the total,
Yeah, and there is
so just in the future,
there is grant funding that is available for firefighters take the hazmat 40-hour course.
Right.
I've taken the 40-hour course. I'm hazmat certified. But the only thing is, you've got to have the personnel.
Right.
And it sounds like Black River Fire, it's hard to keep people trained and you've got to have so many hours, that kind of thing. So, yeah, but I can put something together at the next meeting.
That's all.
Any other questions on divisional reports? Come on, staffing vacancies and recruitment updates.
Oh, staffing, we still do have some vacancies. As it sits right now, the jail is short one full-time. What's my, they're starting on March first? Okay, and they're starting on March first. And I believe that's a female, for a night shift position. There's a number of vacancies that are still open in the spots there. In the patrol division, on paper, we would be full except for the lead contracted position, and that's been discussed here today. There's still the communications lead, that part-time position was open, that is open right now. And then in the admin side, we have the tech support position that's open, as well as the administrative position that's open. Outside of those things, we have a number of people across multiple divisions that are either coming back from FMLA or out on FMLA right now. So as it sits right now, we have actively one person that's covering multiple jobs in the administrative support spot right now. So because of vacancies and medical stuff. So that's kind of where we're at right now. As far as updates on that, we have had interviews take place for one administrative assistant spot. And we're in backgrounds on that. The captain is in backgrounds on some LTE positions for the dispatch center. And then we are working with HR right now to set up interviews for the technical support specialist. Is there any other questions on that?
Working on staffing.
I just want to make a comment that we are not pursuing or moving forward with that position. The one that was presented and went through some committees, so you probably left our committee and was at exec and finance or whatever was going on with that for the cost. That's been withdrawn and going to be waiting until the next budget cycle. We are proceeding with the tech support specialist.
That position he's referring to would be the communications lead and the tech support component.
Yeah. I think I called it a manager, whatever the title was. So that's been on hold or pending next budget.
Any questions? Okay, discuss and act vouchers payable, budget review.
I've got a question on the budget. We've got, let's see, 5 or 6 spots where we've got part-time hours being charged. And there's no budget for part-time.
Well, I think we talked about this because you had requested to have overtime and part-time broke back out because otherwise it was in salaries, but it was after the budget was set.
So
So part-time and overtime is,
it's the same then? Part-time is overtime?
no, so the part-time and overtime lines will show over budget and will show that there is nothing budgeted there because it was budgeted into the salaries.
We don't have a specific employee for part-time then at this point. That,
May I address this?
so, go ahead.
So many, I can probably track down the actual committee meeting or if there's minutes available. The committee, it was discussed during budget time and then accepted by a practice to put all the overtime and part-time together. So another committee action was wanting it to be in salaries, which we didn't disagree because it seemed like it was all being paid out of one area anyways. It was the choice of the committee, and then subsequently, I don't know if there's something on file with the clerk's office, but they adjusted. That was a decision on the budget. So the reason is that from that time moving forward, all the monies were estimated and funneled into one line item. Now what I'm hearing is that they want to break it out and itemize again. So I corresponded with Cindy. That's totally up to the county and their wishes. That's a budget decision and administrative oversight. So however that works, I just wanted to give you some history that this was decided in committee and subsequent county board to organize utilize ours that way. We do have part-time spending and we do have overtime spending. It just was being spent out of one line item in the past. Just so you have an understanding of the committee's action in the past.
Any other questions?
I have one on the budget, page 27 of the budget. So, so we got social security, state retirement, health insurance for this area. And it's not budgeted. So I'm wondering how we can have we got a $25,000 salary budgeted, but no social security, retirement or health insurance budget addressed. So
I can't see it. Nick's got it.
It's the behavioral health corrections
Just behavioral,
position,
yeah.
so instead of, so the sheriff's department pays up to 25,000 towards that position. The rest of the position is paid out of the opioid settlement funds that the county receives. And so it was just budgeted 25,000 period, and that broke out between the social security, retirement, health insurance.
Yeah, the better way to explain it, we had 25,000 set in an expenditure line item, not personnel expense. And when we transitioned into the behavioral health spending, our investment out of the budget to support that was 25,000. So then it was decided to take it out of that behavioral health or mental health line item that's lower in that section and put it in the salaries line. And then it allowed Cindy's office to choose whatever method and means she does to understand what that really means. So basically we know it's all now being invested instead of a sub-service to that salary and what we could and what we did budget. That's the best way I can explain it. As for the breakdowns, that would fall into some other accounting practice.
Any other questions? Okay, need a motion to approve the voucher? Motion made by Ron,
I'll second.
seconded by Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Need a motion to adjourn?
Almost to adjourn.
Motion made by Matt,
Second.
by Bill. All in favor?
Aye.
Good report.
I apologize. I have another meeting here. So I gotta go. I didn't realize you said 11. And Cindy, if we want to talk more about that, I heard I have no issues sending it over and.
I sent you an email, reminder, so I keep that.
Yeah, and
Can I get that resolution thing?
Yeah.
Wanders off.
So basically what you're gonna say that I'll send over is the actual sign, this room, and I think it's somewhere. I mean, if we have the actual.
So you're not gonna send me what was presented
No.
today?
I can't do it. What I'm getting at is, send this, the current contract.
Okay.
There's a side letter changing the percentages that was signed in the past as well for Maryland to drop from 50% to 25.
Okay.
That'll be attached as the original stuff.
I'm just worried about what was presented at the committee here today.
Totally get it.
You need to put with the minutes.
Okay, I got that. But for housing document, like when Bill wants to refer to it, we'll talk about that. Where it's gonna be housed and access to it.
I think we're in a transition because several years it was the clerk's office, then it went to the sheriff's office. For now,
No,
so, I don't know. I got what I got. I don't know what you got.
Yeah, it's available. It's not there.
I gotta go see IT. This thing, okay, now,
That's
And then
definitely nice.
I will,
this thing,
I forgot I had 10.
this thing don't work. I couldn't pick nothing up. I could look at any.
That's dark sign, maybe that's dark there. Yeah. Hey, Ron, you got some time to chat?
Sure.
Okay,